Hey guys, it's been a while, but it's good to be back. I actually realized the only time I've actually recorded a video by myself is when I started this YouTube channel. So this is actually the second video by myself. So this is going to be interesting. But as I always say, I just love to share what God puts on my heart. So if this is for you, let's get into today's video. So yeah, now to get into today's video, if you are new and this is your first time watching, do share, subscribe, and join the family. If you are a returning subscriber, then thank you so much for continuing to watch. It's funny how when you haven't done this for 2 months, it feels like you are starting again from the beginning. I'm a bit anxious, but I'm trusting God will help me through this. So when I started this YouTube channel, the reason I started is I felt that God was calling me to start a channel where we talk about the everyday struggles we face as Christians. I felt like I didn't see much of that, and I wanted to show people the everyday challenges we face, parenting, in our spiritual journeys, business, all aspects of life, and I have been doing that. And it's funny, this is my second video where I'm doing it by myself, but in this season, God has been teaching me a lot. Like a lot. So anyway, I think last month I did a 40-day fast. I went off social media. I did a mental detox. I wasn't posting anything. I just felt that I needed to be at the feet of Jesus and be the one to get that feeling. Like I felt like I was empty. I didn't have that spirit of discernment anymore. I feel like I had so many voices that were now distracting me, and I needed to just be with God himself. So anyway, so that's why I took the 40 days off. It wasn't easy because I'm an empath. And one thing about empaths is we always want to help people. But I also needed to know that in that season, a lot in my life had changed. Like I'd been homeschooling for close to 8 years, and that season had ended, and God was taking me into a new season. And can I just be honest and say, physically it was easy to let go of things that were familiar to me, but emotionally it was harder. So I stopped homeschooling. My kids went back into the school system. It's not something I saw myself doing, but God's, everything I do, I want to be led by God. I thought that this is something I would have to do until they get to high school, but God is all-knowing. And I also found myself being back at school. So anyway, there was just so much happening. I don't want to share everything in one video because I want to share as God leads. So for today, I just want to share what was going on so that I encourage someone who's also in a season where God is telling them they need to be isolated or be removed from people around them because they cannot hear the voice of God anymore. So anyway, God also showed me that I was now doing some things in my own power. Like, having an online ministry, at some point I would just share videos on Wednesdays because, hey, that's when most of my followers are online, and the algorithm was showing me Wednesday at this particular time is the best time to share a video. And in the time that I took 40 days off and I was just meditating on the word, God also showed me that, Anna, I called you to do my work, but now you are doing it in your own power. And I remember coming across the story of Gideon, and God was showing me that the reason he had called me to do this is not because I'm qualified in any way, but he's the one who was going to provide everything that I needed, right? But in that moment, I remember actually having to say, God, may you forgive me, because I was now doing things my own way, like coming on YouTube. I always thought I needed to come with someone. Sometimes people would cancel and say, when I would go to them, let's do a video together, some would not respond, some would cancel, so many different things. And God was just reminding me that when I call you to share, it's not about waiting on the day that is perfect for you, but coming out and sharing whatever I've called you to do. Work with what I've given you, not what you think is best. And to be honest, guys, it's so humbling. And one of the lessons I want to share today that God had to teach me is the spirit of fear. because I have that online ministry where I'm trying to be honest and authentic with people. I never wanted to share a perfect life, because perfection is an illusion. And I think that is why so many people have walked away from the Christian life, because sometimes we've misrepresented God, right? We show people something that is not real. And I thought through this channel, I want people to know that we all face our struggles. Just because you follow God does not mean you don't go through any struggles. You do go through the struggles, but the difference is you're not doing it alone anymore as you would before you know God. God is helping you through everything that you face, right? So it's something that I had to learn myself. And I know one of the greatest fears that I've had for so long is 3 years ago, I stopped driving. I started having driving anxiety after someone almost hit me. And to someone who's listening, and you can drive easily, you can say to yourself like, "Sha, everyone drives," but to be honest, it was not easy for me. Even if I was sitting next to someone who was driving, I had my own set of brakes where I'd be like, "Wait, there's a car coming." And I know my husband said to me, "Anna, it's so irritating. You make me panic even when there's nothing." I tried to force myself and drive, and I found that in trying to force myself, I started getting back pains. I would have panic attacks, and at some point I needed to be on anxiety pills. So I'd take the anxiety pills and then it would be easier. So anyway, in the 40 days that I was offline, God also showed me that, "Anna, you can't share with people things that I have not done in your own life. You can't go to someone and say, God will deliver you from fear, if I have not been able to deliver you from your own fear." So I had to actually go back from the very beginning, which was really hard, because obviously as humans we have pride, because I was saying to myself, "God, this is something I could do for so long, so why do I need to start afresh?" But what is amazing is I remember saying to God, "God, I'm tired of doing it in my own power, so you take over." And when I was coming from church, where I was just talking to God, there was a car that was next to us, and it was this guy who owns a driving school, and God prompted on my heart to say, "Take his number." Right? And I called the guy and I'm like, "So I used to drive, but I have driving anxiety and I just want to get over the fear." And God is amazing, because when I prayed, I said, "God, can you find me a kind, compassionate person who's loving enough to take me through it?" And this man was, he's quite old. He's a grandfather. He's got these 3 amazing triplets who are his grandchildren, and he was the best instructor I could ever get. And what is amazing is, usually here when you do driving, you pay like $80 to $60 per lesson. This guy charged me $45, and I could not believe it. And he said to me, the first day I was shaking, like literally I was shaking. I was like, "I can't do it." And I kept reciting the verse, "God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." But it was hard. And I learned that just because God says he will help us through something, it doesn't mean that it's going to instantly happen. Sometimes you actually have to go through the process. So anyway, I had to show up, I had to do the lessons again, and little by little, I started getting better. And he said to me, well, when I was still doing the lessons, because I was relying on anxiety pills, God also got to a point where he's like, "You need to stop taking them, because you are relying on those pills more than you're relying on me." And I stopped taking them. And the first day, I'm like, wow, I actually drove without the anxiety pills. And I think God really showed me that I had come to a point in my life where I thought there are some things that I had achieved in my own power, and he wanted me to totally surrender everything to him. And yeah, so I continued my lessons, and then my instructor is like, "Anna, you're ready." So when I came to Australia, they don't recognize the Zimbabwe license. You have to convert it. So you basically go for the writing test, and then you have to go for the driving test. So that's where I was. So when I almost got hit by a car, I had done the writing test and I was supposed to do the driving test. But because of my anxiety, I didn't get to do it. So I was just literally moving around driving as a learner. Some days I could do it, some days I couldn't. And yeah, it was a whole crazy scenario. But anyway, so I registered, and I want to be honest and say it wasn't easy. And I had to say to God, God, as I'm going for this test, if I do it in my own power, I'm going to fail, because this is something that doesn't come naturally for me. And I remember 2 days before the test, the devil started telling me, Anna, if you get this wrong, if you fail, it's going to be a confirmation that you're a failure. You know, those lies he starts bringing in your mind to say, you do know it's taken you 3 years, right? Imagine what's going to happen. Imagine if you fail. And I started thinking of the worst, and I really had to go back to God and say, God, I'm struggling, you know, and be honest with him that I need you to help me. And I remember the day before saying to him, God, if you get me out of this, I promise I will never take credit for myself. I'm going to share with as many people as possible that you are the one who got me out of this fear. Right? So anyway, on the day, I prayed again in the morning, and I was listening to worship music because I was anxious. I'm not going to lie to you. And for a moment, I was like, Anna, just take that anxiety pill so that it will help you. And I knew if I took that anxiety pill, then I'm trusting in my own power again. You know, so I decided I have a choice in this moment to do things my own way, like I've always done, or to actually trust God and ask him what he's trying to teach me, you know. And I went. I remember before I went, though, he showed me the verse Isaiah 43, verse 10. And I will share it below, but it basically says, I'm right there with you, holding you with my right hand. You know, I will help you. It was like, wow, God, you're there. You actually know what I'm going through. So for me, I'm just in a space where I literally talk to God throughout the day, and I hear him in the small things. When I'm just like, God, I can't do this, or remind me, send me your love and all that, and he hears me. I remember a few months ago where so many things were happening in my life, and I was just going through such a spiritual warfare. And I said to God, God, I need a break from this online ministry. Is it still for me, or I need to quit? And I remember I was like to him, if you still want me to continue this work, you need to confirm. And the next day in my Instagram, I saw someone who messaged me, and they said, you don't know me, but I just wanted to tell you, your videos on YouTube have changed my life. I religiously follow you. I follow everything that you're doing. It's really helped me. And this person does not even know it, because we started talking, we started doing coaching together. But that day, she reminded me that I needed to continue, that obviously when you're doing God's work, the enemy is not always going to be happy, but it doesn't mean that you stop working for God. So anyway, I went for the test, and before I got to the test, I said, God, you provided the greatest instructor for me. May you do the same with the examiner who's going to come and examine me today. So when we're waiting in the queue, we stood for a while, and my instructor was trying to calm me down, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear it this moment. Can you just, let me be? And there's a guy who came and he's like, oh, you guys have been standing for a while. How can I help you? And I'm like, yes, God, this is the guy. I thought it was a confirmation. And I remember something I read. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but I just felt I needed to share this. I remember something I read in the 40 days of prayer when I was praying and taking time to meditate on the word. And it was the story of Elisha and his servant when they were surrounded by their enemies. And the servant was like panicking, and he's like, Elisha, what are we going to do? And Elisha prayed, and he said, God, may you help my servant to have spiritual eyes to see that those who are for us are more than those who are against us. And God needed to remind me that, Anna, there's so many things that are happening in your life that sometimes you feel like you're surrounded by the enemy, but you need to know, I'm surrounding you more than the little enemies that you see. And the servant's eyes were opened, and he saw that there were horses with chariots and people on horses and chariots fighting their battle. And for me, that's what I learned, that no matter what I face, God is always with me. So anyway, the person came and they started writing, filling out the forms. And while he was in the middle of filling out the forms, another guy comes and he's like, can you take over? And in that moment, I'm like, God, what is happening? This is the person. Why are you changing him? He's such a nice guy. Like when you just look from the outside. I love the verse that says, men look from the outside, but God looks at the heart. Because at that moment, I'm like, he's perfect, God. What's going on? But God is like, Anna, you are doing things your way again. Can you hold up and let me do what I do best? So anyway, the guy who came turned out to be the best guy ever. We started talking and he's like, hello, mate. What can I do for you today? That's how Australians speak, like mate, this mate thing. And anyway, he took us out and he's like, let's go for the test. And when we were in the car, he's like, I can tell you're nervous. What can I do for you so that it's easier? And I said to him, can you just talk to me? Repeat the instructions. And he's like, okay, I'll repeat as much as I need to. Guys, this God hears our prayers. It didn't even feel like a test. The guy was talking to me. We talked about our families. We got to a point where we did a curbside parking and he stopped and he said, tell me more about you, Anna. What type of a person are you? What do you enjoy? And I was telling him, I enjoy coaching. I enjoy helping abused women. I enjoy helping. And he started telling me about a friend who actually sold her house so that she could help abused women. Like we just connected and it became a conversation, and he was telling me, Anna, you're doing well. Even if you miss a turn, don't worry, we can come back and do it again. Guys, I saw the hand of God. And when we were done, he said, before we're done, we were going to do the curbside, the parallel parking, and I sat in parallel parking. And I remember that moment, I was like, God help me. I think he just looked he's not Christian, so he looked at me like, what's up with this girl saying, God help me? Like I literally said it aloud, like, God, you will need to help me get into this parking. And he did. He really helped me. And I was able to complete the test. I passed with flying colors. And he said to me, you're such a show off. You actually knew what you needed to do, but I knew it was God. So anyway, why am I sharing this story? I know you may not have driving anxiety. You may probably be able to have your phone on one hand while driving, but every single one of us has a fear. We have a fear, and I want to say to you today, you need to allow God to take over that fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear, and sometimes we limit what he can do. We limit him showing off and showing his glory in our lives because we are holding on to our fear. You might have lost a child at some point in your life. You might have had a miscarriage and God is telling you, try again. And you're like, God, I can't go through the same trauma that I went through before. And I want to encourage you that it is time that you let go of that fear and you allow God to take control. You may have been hurt by a past boyfriend or girlfriend and you've hardened your heart so much. And I want to come to you and say today, let go of that fear and try again. One of the greatest promises that is given in the word is God has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. There's never a moment in time where he says, child, do this by yourself. He is always right there with us. Whatever fear that you might have, I know research has shown that the greatest fear that people have is actually to speak in public. And I used to be one of them. Literally, it is God who's helped me to share these videos. People always say to me, Anna, you don't understand. It's scary. And I'm like, girl, I am also scared. But through him, before I do any video, I pray and I say, God, I'm about to do your work. So it is your name that is going to be compromised. And he's just always been there with me. And I want to encourage you today. What I've learned is the world sets so many standards that are not the same with God. It sets standards like you need to be perfect, and God says you need to be unqualified for me to use you. You need to be weak for me to be the one to make you strong. And I want to encourage you today that no matter what you're facing in your life, if you know you're at a point where there's so many voices around you, you're so distracted, then do what I did. Take a mental detox and just be at the feet of Jesus and hear what he has to say to you. Don't get obsessed with the followers, with the likes, with what people will say. Take time off. I've also learned that when God calls you to do something, if you delay, then you're disobeying. If you look at people confirming your calling, people confirming whatever you're called to do, then you're not using the Lord's strength anymore. You're using your own power. So for me, it's been a journey, and I still have so much to share. On the next video, maybe I'll do it with my husband so I can share with you how hard it has been for us to take our children back to school. I was sharing yesterday on my Facebook to say one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is to say the same prayer request before God for the past 4 years, and God has still not answered it with a yes. And that pertains to my son. And I will share more on one of the videos. But for today, I want to encourage someone and say, what is God telling you to do in this very moment? Are you obeying Him, or you're trusting in your own strength? You know, I can tell you from experience that when we do not spend time meditating on the Word of God, when we start doing things with our own strength, then we are moved away from God. Right? We start trusting in our own power, and it just increases our anxiety levels. You know, we're constantly in this rat race where the world is like, you need to be doing this, that, and that, you know. But God is the opposite. He tells you, be still sometimes. He tells you, I need to isolate you, because where I'm taking you, you need to be equipped, because if you go the way that you are and I give you what you want, you will not be able to handle the blessing. So I want to end by saying, a lot of things are going to change. I'm still a servant of God, and I get humbled, and He teaches me along the way. Never think that the reason I am sharing is because I'm perfect or I'm a standard of righteousness. I'm just a child of God sharing my journey, and hoping that through these videos you'll be encouraged to also trust in the same God that I know. Someone was saying to me the other day, Anna, I can't believe this is you. You have totally changed. And I said to her, I am evidence of what God can do. And I pray that we never withhold our testimonies of what God does, no matter how small it is. If God has allowed you to get a parking space on a busy day where the parking lot is full, don't be ashamed to share that, because you're a reminder for someone that God meets us at our point of need. You know, you're a reminder of someone that no matter what we face, God is always right beside us. And I'm one of those people who are big on sharing on every little testimony, as long as God has allowed me to share. And I pray that this has blessed you. I'm still learning. Like these videos, it wasn't easy for me to do a video by myself, because I guess I've gotten so comfortable to doing it with someone. So I'm going to be changing a lot of things, because I am learning that my job is never to do things perfectly, but to do what God has trusted me to do. It's never to question God, but to thank God for the honor of using me to be His child. And I pray that we continue to do this journey together, and we continue to grow. I am going to be doing a Bible study soon for those who want to join a 7-day a week of Bible study. And if you want to join, and if you feel that you are in a space where you want God to also teach you what it means to trust in Him, then do get in touch with me on my Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You can even comment below. I want us to know that this world is so tough when we do it by ourselves, but with God on our sides, He says nothing that the devil tries to bring your way will harm you. Yeah, He says, I have given you authority to overpower him, but it is only through me. So anyway, this video has turned out to be long, but I hope you've been encouraged. I want to leave you with this verse, and it says, 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. And it says perfect love casts out fear. The reason that we fear is because we do not trust that God loves us so much to deliver us from our fear. I will end here. If you enjoyed this video, please share, like, and subscribe. The only way we can continue to share the word of God is if we share with other people. And I pray that for everyone who's watching, you're never embarrassed to be honest and say, I'm only standing where I am today because of what God has done for me. Never take glory or praise for the work that God does in your life, because if you do that, it will end badly. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.